According to Statista, worldwide adoption of digital assets is rapidly increasing as countries like the United States of America and China are leading the way in integrating blockchain technology into their financial systems. Nigeria is not left behind, as the recent signing into law of the Investment and Securities Bill 2025 has classified digital assets as securities in the capital market. This is a landmark legislation. You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss the Investment and Securities Act 2025 and the opportunities for fintech industry in Nigeria to scale. Joining me for this conversation is Mr. Babatunde Akin-Moses, Co-Founder of Sycamore NG, a fintech company. It's great to have you first time on my program.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very well. And of course, this legislation is a landmark, the Investment and Securities Act 2025, especially for digital asset space and the fintech industry. Let's first begin with how this has clarified and of course provided that guidance for digital assets as securities in the capital market. How will this transform the entire fintech landscape in the country?
You know, people always argue about innovation and regulation. So there's been a lot of innovation. So you have things like digital assets that haven't been fully recognized. And you've even had this back and forth about whether is it a currency, is it an asset, CBN, is it SEC? I think the Act sort of gives legitimacy to that. So what you would have now, I think you would have more players coming into the market. A lot of people that were in the gray area now know that, oh, okay, now there's actually a law that's guiding, our activities. And what that means is, there's just a very good multiplier effect on the economy. You have more users coming into the regulated markets, and you have just the sheer number of activity that you can generate. We can talk about what that means in terms of employment, what that means in terms of GDP, what that means in terms of tax payments, everything now captured, right? And that data is what, SEC has access to that data. That is regulated information, and that just provides better decision making for the government if you have more of that data available. So I would say it's a welcome development, and the increased activity should, signal a lot of good for the nation.
A lot of good for the nation. And Nigeria, in terms of ranking top 3 in terms of digital assets activities but now we're going to see more capturing, formalization. Yes. But for your fintech ecosystem as a player, what should we expect to see in terms of use cases that can deepen the capital markets, that can bring a new class of investors, like the Central Securities Clearance Systems PLC?
Yes.
Which helps in terms of the market infrastructure. According to his data, the average age of the investor in the country in the equities market is 53. Yes. So I was saying in my recent conversation on the ISA with a scholar, Professor Waleke, that we need to take it down to 25.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
We can bring in more of the young people.
Yes.
So how is your industry preparing to use cases and also improve the capital market and unlock, like you said, economic opportunities?
You already hit the nail on the head. There is a newer generation of people that are keen more into those exotic assets and digital assets, right? It's a younger demography. So by virtue of this, you already have a lot of those people playing. And then, if you look at it from there's a user perspective, but even the platform it creates. So one of the very interesting things I like about this ISA is that, it makes a distinction between composite and non-composite exchanges, right? So a lot of these players are not just platforms. They're also exchanges where if you're doing a composite, you can do anything, right? And you can only be specific for a particular asset if you want to do a non-composite exchange, right? So there are many exchanges that will even create platform for other businesses to thrive, right? Yes. So when you look at that, it's a market enabler, not just from the individual perspective. And when you have an exchange, there are so many people in the ecosystem, advisors, new users, technology, people building the apps. Again, it creates a very good multiplier effect because you've not just enabled the platforms, you've enabled things like exchanges that people will come and build on. So financial advisors, people will be raising money, people will be building technology, and that just, again, is a net positive, right? So we can start to see tokenization of more assets. We can start to see some of these companies going to the capital market to issue initial coin offerings, and those are those are more options for investors, right? That is regulated.
Yes.
Because when you're looking at a security, maybe a commercial paper or something, you check, is this regulated? Is it covered by SEC? Some of those questions now, this also provides coverage. So I would say that enablement of more people to come and the ecosystem, not just even tech, even all the supporting industries around that ecosystem. Let me just say the pie has gotten bigger now for everybody to it's more from.
Yeah, the pie has gotten bigger. And I see us even competing with those initial economies that I mentioned, US and China.
Absolutely.
Because scholars said that the regulatory process even has more clarity in terms of how it will work. But let's look at regulation, very important. I mean, recently there was a forum where the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission interacted with the fintech industry, and he emphasized the importance of registration. I know that Sycamore is registered by SEC, which is also very important in our engagement. He said registration will help for proper regulation. What is your expectation in terms of this new vista of opportunity? How a regulation can enable more activities in digital asset space? What do you want to see more happen from the regulator, SEC?
Yeah. One of the things that makes things difficult to achieve is friction, right? So friction is ease of use or user experience for those of us in digital space. Right now, it's not very easy to get a SEC license. I can tell you that for free. If we start that story now, we'll not finish your program today, right?
Of course, they will tell you that they have to go through
you have to go through the process, which is fine, and which makes sense, right? Because you want to also be sure that these people are legitimate, they mean business. So you can have a thorough process. You should have a thorough process. But I think that there can also be maybe areas, if possible, in the process where is there any way we can make it easier? And I know SEC is already doing a lot. You can talk about how much more enlightenment is even going on. And I think there's also going to be a case of, I would also want, SEC to increase capacity, both, human and digital asset division. Exactly. So probably more people as well, because right now, and as probably maybe we'll talk about, if you look at identifying illegal schemes now, is more of a negative thing where usually somebody would write and ask for clarification. And you can't really blame SEC because there's so many. If you have to come all these states looking for each one of them, right? So capacity building, I think, important. They're already doing very well financial literacy. You mentioned DG himself came and was taught to engage people, which is fantastic. So I would say already going in the right direction. We just need more of such forum and engagement.
And I think from what you've said, even the International Organization of Securities Commission, which is the body for all regulatory agencies of capital markets, they will need to work more in this capacity building, because this area of digital assets is very, very tight. You have to be very careful with it, very sensitive.
Absolutely.
And its impact. Of course, that brings us to the recent incident of another Ponzi scheme. We've seen several Ponzi schemes, and yet again, CBEX. I mean, allegedly 1.3 trillion naira of Nigerians' money trapped there and for over 9 years. That's really massive. If you look at our federal allocation across federal government states, and it's always about 1.2, 1.5 trillion. That is almost going down the drain. So how do we have an industry-led approach to increase investor education, like you said, investor financial literacy, to just remind Nigerians that invest or carry activities in registered platforms from sector operators like you? How do we drive this?
How do we drive it, right? So we all have a part to play, to be honest. As we're encouraging SEC to do more investor education, more public engagement, I think we, the players, also have a part to play. You can never do too much engagement. And, some of these things also thrive on some level of illiteracy, and even poverty. I mean, I think these guys were offering 100% in 30 days on FX denominated assets that you struggle to get double digits for a year. So 100% is ridiculous, right? So I think a lot of the people there, it might not even be their fault, right? It's a question of, did they ask anybody to talk to? Did they have anybody to even ask about this thing before they jumped into it, right? I have several people that would, relatives and family members that are called, Tunde, you're in the finance space. I heard about this, so how fast? Run away. So there is on the regulator side, there is even we private sector players, because it makes our business easier and better, right? And generally as government, I mean, I don't want us to keep talking about government, but government has some role to play, right?
Yes, the regulators.
Regulators as well. So I also think that all this investor education we are doing, there are two aspects that I think can make it easier and more widespread. Obviously, adopting more digital channels for engagement because of how easily it can fly. And I think to get to the grassroots, right, a lot of these things we do, we need to also start thinking of making them available in other languages too.
Yes, local languages.
Yes, other languages, because I mean, money is a universal language, right? Everybody spends money, but not everybody can speak English. I think again, when we talk about financial inclusion, banking the unbanked, all these things that we do, there's a limit to how far it can go if everything is in English.
Yes.
We have how many tribes? Hundreds of tribes in Nigeria, languages. It's not going to be easy, but at least we can start from somewhere, right?
Yes.
And it makes the penetration easier and go down to some of the people it needs to get to. So apart from capacity building, apart from engagement, let's make as much of it digital and some of it offline. And let's even adopt, other languages for it to, get to some of the areas beyond. Because not everybody's living in Lagos or Abuja.
Sure. I mean, this will be a win-win because you have the retail market.
Yes.
Good retail
exactly.
Market. And in the words of the Oni of Ife, I was at a forum, market-led forum. Like he said, if the capital market from the regulator said to all operators, exchanges and all that, can make efforts to try to bring in from the suya seller to those people and the retail marketplace sellers, bring him on board to the market. That's massive savings mobilized for the country. And that's capital market activity. That's good investment that's secure.
I mean, one of the reasons why a lot of people are not even listing on the stock exchange, for example, is if you look at the number of activity there, it's very, very little compared to when you compare the population, the people engaging like digital virtual assets. You're seeing the volume of blockchain transactions. And you're looking at the NGX and you're like, why is there so much a disparity? And you've had a lot of big companies that haven't delisted. They feel like, okay, why are we here? There is no the level of liquidity, some will say, is not as deep as they'd expect it to be. And there are many big companies that would have loved to list, but they are skeptical. So, if we go back to where you started from, with this working, getting the average from age of 50 to even 25, you have the market deeper, more people can raise capital, and more people can do business because, again, these things have a way of sort of dispersing into other areas of the economy as well.
And interestingly, the leadership of NGX and other exchanges are now driving.
They are working very hard
which
to
is a good one.
Make that happen.
We've seen capital raising other years, massive capital raising, but it seems to be a bit challenging. And of course, the issues of risk, fraud challenges, issues of being able to attract more investments. But Nigeria is still among the top when it comes to talking. But how's it going? I mean, what do you see as a trajectory for 2025?
I think that, so first off, a lot of people have acknowledged that a lot of foundational steps have been taken by the current government. We will not see the results immediately, obviously, but there's a lot of, the trajectory is good in terms of the outlook. So I think on that basis, in fintech specifically, there are some trends that, we are seeing. Gradually over time, as a lot of people have noticed, there's been a lot more emphasis on transfer as a means of payment compared to cards. And that has led to the rise of certain, fintechs, which I'm sure you know their names, but we can't give them free adverts. So you see that's happening a lot. And because of this act now, I think we'll see a lot more crypto blockchain related players, digital asset operators. So you have the virtual asset service providers. You see a lot of that also happening in the market. We should see a lot of that happening. And I think one other big thing that we'll see in fintech a lot is, which is neither here nor there for the nation, is a lot of people are also building FX denominated products, giving people access to multiple types of currencies. And really, it's where we are as a market because of some of the instability we've seen in the last few years. So people are now making it possible for other people to, send money abroad, because a lot of people have
remittances,
jackpot. So there's a lot of remittances and cross-border play. So you have a lot of fintech building products where you have multiple currencies. Some of them you might be able to send and all of that. So I think that's another like major trend that you see in the market. So I'll just those three are some of the things I see happening this year.
Very interesting conversation with you, Mr. Babatunde Akin-Moses, co-founder of Sycamore NG. Very clear that the ISA 2025 is a game changer.
It is.
But we need to boost capacity in the area of regulations.
Yes.
In the area to meet the demands, because licensing, like the SEC acknowledged, for even these are asset exchanges and all that needs to come on board. They're going to work on capacity and resolutions. Absolutely. You also talked about digital channels to improve awareness. It's very critical when you see the CBEX and all these Ponzi schemes. Digital awareness is very important. And you also talked about a whole industry approach to unlocking products, use cases for the market, and hopefully we'll find the younger people coming on board with the registered platforms. And of course, with you and other operators, we begin to see different financial inclusion and economic opportunities expand in our country.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Founder of Sycamore NG. Very interesting conversation.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that will be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics Conversation, where we looked at the Investment and Securities Act 2025 and the opportunities for scaling the Nigerian fintech industry. You can join us on our social media platforms displayed on the screen and also our website. Till we come your way again, my name is Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.